Kia ora and welcome to our New Zealand Working Holiday webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we're going to be joined by our recruitment experts, Scott, Sophia and Manish, and we're going to be covering a couple of topics. So first of all, we're going to run through the New Zealand market update. We'll have Sophia join us to talk us about getting situated in New Zealand and some top tips there. We have Scott talking to us about some of those job searching strategies, how to write your CV and stand out from the crowd. And then finally, we'll be joined by Manish, who's going to be covering those interview preparations so that you can put your best foot forward going into that interview. And then at the end, we will have our Q&A with our recruitment experts, so you can ask any questions that you want, and that's when we'll be able to answer for you. So let's start off our talent webinar by having a chat around the New Zealand market. Okay, so we'd love some stats and figures. So first we're going to have a little bit of a look at the New Zealand migration. So in 2023, the New Zealand, we've experienced one of the highest ever record migrations since before pre-COVID levels. So we've had around about 132,000 migrants moving across to New Zealand, which is great to see that everyone wants to move over. And at the end of last year, we did have our New Zealand government come into play, and we've already started to see a couple of those changes across immigration. So a few of those changes that we've seen in the market is we have started to see that there is a little bit of an increase in some of the application fees for some of the visas. So it's just something to have a look into if you are looking to go from your working holidays into your work visas and residency and that kind of thing. We've also seen that there is a bit of an increase in terms of the median wage, and that's come into place since February 2024. So this isn't across all visas, but it is across some. So it's worth having a look at in terms of what you need to be paid to be able to be supported within your visa application. We have seen that there is a new parents visitors visa. So basically it's extended out how long the parents of migrants coming over can actually stay in New Zealand. So it's worth checking that out if you are looking to get your mum and dad across as well. And then I think one of the big changes, which is really going to help international students, is that the visa where you were only able to work 20 hours whilst in term time has actually now been increased to 24 hours a week. So it does mean that you're able to get a few more hours in there, which one helps with the money side, but two, I also think that helps with actually being able to find employment because you're able to be a little bit more flexible on that front. And then finally, we have seen a creation of some new visas. So we have got a new visa category called the Global Growth Tech Residency Visa. And that's really they've put that in play to attract some of those kind of like high skilled tech candidates that want to come over to New Zealand to really kind of boost the economy. We have started to see a little bit of a change in the New Zealand market. So we are moving slightly away from that candidate-led market into a little bit more of an employer-led market. So we are still seeing a skill shortage in some areas. However, it is a case that we do need to be putting our best foot forward. Temporary visa holders still hold a very good place because whereas there are changes in the market, sometimes businesses are looking to bring in people on a temp basis just to fill some of those kind of like projects whilst they're recruiting for permanent hires. And that process is taking a little bit longer at the moment because there are a few more applicants in the market. So we will look at our next graph, which takes us into job application numbers. So towards the end of last year and coming into 2024, we've seen a huge change in the market. So what we can see here is obviously COVID, we saw a reduction in terms of how many jobs were advertised across New Zealand. And then we saw this really quick rise out of it, which was where there was a definitely candidates market. There was a lot of jobs out there for us to choose from. And we are now slightly on that decline again. So there's around 172,500 jobs that have been advertised across New Zealand. And we have started to see a little bit of an increase in terms of how many applications there are. So since January, it has increased by about 54% in our application numbers, and that's across the whole of New Zealand. So it can be put down to a couple of factors. So the first is Kiwis had their Christmas break and it's the new year, new me. So they're back on the market and they're having a look at what they want to do next within their career. The other thing that we have started to see is there are a couple of businesses are looking at their structures, having a few changes. So there are a couple of redundancies in the market and bringing people looking for work. And I think the final thing is what we touched on at the start with migration numbers being at an all-time high. So it does mean that there's a few more people out there who are looking for positions. So what does that mean for you guys as job seekers? So it just means that we need to be putting our best foot forward. And that's why we're here today, just so that we can give you a couple of tips and tricks around that. So it's just ensuring things like your CVs in the best possible shape that it can be. Your profiles are really compelling and you get putting your best foot forward, getting in front of that hiring manager. And then sometimes it's also just being a little bit creative in terms of how you can you can showcase your experience and what you can bring to a role that isn't just a piece of paper, and getting past that application line. We're going to move over to having a little look at New Zealand's unemployment rate. So we have seen a slight increase in the New Zealand unemployment rate. So at the end of the third quarter last year, we were sat at around about 3.9%. At the end of the final quarter, we had rose a tiny bit, and that was to 4%. So it's slightly lower than predictions, which is great news. So we were predicted to be sat at about that 4.3%. So we've not quite seen that shift in the market just yet. In terms of what this means, though, it all summarizes together. We're moving into a competitive market. So as I've touched on a couple of times already, it's definitely about putting your best foot forward. And there's a couple of things that you can do. So it's just looking at how you can demonstrate your skills, your qualifications, your experience, and how you can stand out from other candidates in the market. So a few little bits that I'll touch on right now, and I won't go into too much detail because I know the guys have got quite a bit to cover on their end. But it's really looking at how you can tailor your applications. So it's really important for you to tailor your application for that specific job. We're no longer in the market where you can just send your CV out to everyone and hope you get a call back. You really need to just be spending a little bit more time on those applications. Networking, this is where Frog Recruitment can help out as well. But those networking opportunities, New Zealand is a very small market. So sometimes when you're at these networking events, you never know who you're talking to, whether they're a hiring manager or no a hiring manager. So it's very good just to get out and about and in front of people and have those conversations to see what else is out there. And I think the other thing is just to be a little bit open-minded. So instead of thinking around wanting to be pigeonholed to just one area, just thinking about the different opportunities that you might be open to, so that you might be able to explore different career paths and different positions that might be outside of what you've looked at previously, but just to give you a little bit more scope of positions in the market at the moment. And last but not least, I think it's important to mention some of the top hiring industries in New Zealand. So the top ones that we are looking at is showed on the screen right now. So your hospitality and tourism, retail, transportation, construction, engineering, and accounting. So if you're having a look, these are some of the more buoyant areas in the market at the moment and where a few more people are looking to hire. So we are now going to be joined by Sophia, who is going to discuss getting situated in New Zealand.
Thanks, Kirsty. Being an immigrant myself, I know that moving to a new country can be really daunting, especially if you're trying to assimilate into a completely different culture as well. There's lots of little differences that you don't realize until you're actually there. But overall, you will gain and learn so much from working in a new country and learning a new culture. So, if you are thinking of moving to New Zealand, that's great. You will love it and you won't look back. So, in this section, I will be covering how to get situated in New Zealand, just some of the main things that you need to prepare if you are coming here to work. So, first, let's talk work visas. New Zealand offers a popular working holiday visa program for young adults aged 18 to 30 and sometimes up to 35 from eligible countries to work and travel in New Zealand for up to 12 months. If you're from Canada, that can be up to 23 months or up to 36 months if you're from the UK. So, whether you will be eligible for a New Zealand working holiday visa depends on the bilateral agreements between New Zealand and your country. To get this visa, you'll also need to undergo a medical assessment and a police clearance to just demonstrate that you don't pose any health or security risks to New Zealand. You'll also need to demonstrate that you've got enough money to support you upon arrival in New Zealand. So while this may differ, between person to person, it's generally advisable to have around 4.5 grand to cover initial living expenses until securing employment. In the current market, with employment being a little bit harder to secure, I would also recommend saving a bit more just so that you have a little bit more of that security and just for your own peace of mind as well. So similar to the Australian working holiday visa, you must ensure that you have the visa secured before your relocation. So just make sure that you get all of your paperwork done and wait for the approval to come through before booking your flights. So, before actually coming to the country, it's important that you do a bit of research about our country. Just familiarize yourself with New Zealand's geography, culture, and job market to set realistic expectations. You'll also want to try and secure some accommodation as soon as possible. While you can stay somewhere temporarily when you first arrive, such as in a hostel for a few weeks while you do some flat viewings, you'll want to consider securing something more permanent for the duration of your stay. So you can have a look at rental listings online, shared accommodations, flatmate sort of situations, just to make sure that it's a smooth transition when you get here. So for flatting, it's really good. We always use Facebook pages and flatting pages, so definitely have a look on there. Um, that's where a lot of people advertise their rooms, and New Zealanders use Trade Me a lot, which is a online platform that Kiwis use to buy and sell, including cars and properties. You'll also want to have a look at your budget. So definitely estimate your expenses and create a bit of a budget so you can comfortably support yourself during your stay. For a lot of people moving over here, they have said that New Zealand ended up being a lot more expensive than they initially expected, especially in terms of rent, groceries, and petrol. You might think, that we produce a lot of milk and meat here, but, a lot of that goes to overseas exports. And so the groceries that we have available to us do end up being a lot more expensive. So you'll definitely want to keep that in mind as well and just give yourself a bit of leeway. You'll also want to research some job opportunities. While the working holiday visa allows you to work in various industries, it's helpful to research job opportunities in your field of interest before arrival. So look onto job websites. We tend to use Seek a lot. Look into recruitment agencies that might be able to help you, and some networking platforms such as LinkedIn, just to get a sense of the employment landscape and potential job openings. You will also want to prepare your resume and cover letter, just to tailor it to the New Zealand job market and the types of roles that you'd be looking for. But stay tuned on some more tips on how to do that during this webinar with Scott. And then if you drive, you'll need to apply for an international driver's license in your home country before coming over so that you can drive here. So in New Zealand, a lot of people don't know this, but it's pretty crucial to have a car because a lot of us smaller towns don't actually have public transport, and Auckland isn't a very walkable city. So, I mean, if you're moving to Wellington, you can get away with not having a car, but just definitely look into getting an international driver's license. Cool. So now we're going to talk about, you've arrived in New Zealand. What do you do now? So it's always a good idea to start off by setting up a bank account so that you can access your money. So yeah, definitely have a look at all the different banks and see their offerings to find one that suits your needs the best. Be sure to bring along the necessary documents, such as your passport and proof of address, and anything else that you'll need to set up your account. You'll also need to sort out your tax code. So this isn't, tax isn't the most exciting part of your adventure in New Zealand, but it's a crucial step. So as a working holiday maker, you are subject to New Zealand's taxation laws. So you'll need to get an IRD number, which is an Inland Revenue Department number. So it's essential for employers to deduct the correct amount of tax from your wages, essentially. And you can just apply for this, after you've arrived in New Zealand online, but it's always good to get that out of the way as soon as possible so that, you don't have any delays in your employment. And then you'll obviously want to get a phone number. So, in today's connected world, it's going to be important that you have a New Zealand phone number for, when you're job hunting. It's good to have a New Zealand number on your CV. When you're arranging accommodation, people are going to want to call you and do references. And when you are just accessing essential services just in general. So consider getting a prepaid SIM card when you arrive, which offers the flexibility without tying you into a long-term contract. So we've got a few different mobile providers with competitive plans that you can look into. And one of the big reasons why you should get set up with a phone number is so that recruiters can call you and help you in your job hunt. So another important thing to do is familiarize yourself with the public transport here in New Zealand if you are, living in a bigger city. So, this includes trains, buses, and it says tram routes, but I don't think we have trams here in New Zealand. So, there's ferries as well. So definitely invest in a transportation card. So in Auckland here, that's called a hop card. You can just get it from, your nearest ferry. And it'll just help you, get around the city in a cheap way. Google Maps is super handy to sort of put in your A and B and sort of figures out a route for you to get there, and it tells you which buses and trains to take. So that's also really handy. And then you'll want to network. So definitely build connections with fellow travelers and working holiday makers, any locals that you come across, and potential employers to expand your opportunities. So there are a lot of Facebook pages for expats that you can look into, so you can connect with like-minded people from overseas. You'll also want to explore your surroundings, so definitely take some time to, really explore our beautiful country and immerse yourself in the culture and just learn about the history of New Zealand as well. So, yeah, all in all, while our job numbers are lower than usual, don't let this discourage you from moving here if it's something that you've always wanted to do. So, it is important to stay open minded. If you can't find a role in your usual profession, there are lots of hospitality, service, retail, and blue collar roles around. If you are at a high level in your profession back home, don't be startled to find that you might have to start from a lower level here in New Zealand, as a lot of companies are looking for that New Zealand experience. So to get a foot in the door, you will have to start more at that entry to mid-level. But, all in all, there is no faster way to learn a new language and culture than going into employment in a new country. You will grow a lot as a person, and you may find that you really enjoy it here and want to stay. So I wish you all the best in your new adventure. And here are my contact details in case you are in the HR and health and safety space and looking for a role.
Thank you so much, Sophia. It took me back to 6 years ago when I first moved to New Zealand, and you've got to go through all of those tedious things of getting everything set up, and you're not sure where to start. So I think that's really good to have covered some of those things. And I think the other thing what you touched on was definitely, I think for the first year we didn't have a car, and it is a little bit more difficult to get around, and it's definitely
not the best definitely for the public transport.
Yeah, they do the best, but yeah, if you want to get out of Auckland, it's definitely worth getting a car.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much. And if anyone's got any questions around that initial kind of move into New Zealand, then please do leave a comment in the Q&A box, and we will come back to it at the end. the Q&A session. So we are going to continue along our career journey, and now we're going to be joined by Scott Bannister, who is going to talk to us around some of those strategies for writing CVs and some tips.
Thank you, Kirsty. So what we're going to speak about now is your CV, tailoring it to the job search you're doing, and just going over some job search strategies. So what you need to do with your CV is focus on the relevance. So New Zealand employers value targeted applications. So tailor your CV to each job, highlight your skills and experience relevant to the advertised position. The length of the CV does matter. So in some other countries, a short CV is probably preferred. In New Zealand, as it's a little bit more relaxed, 2 or 3 pages of CV is probably preferred. So use the space wisely, focus on your achievements and quantifiable results. Try to keep it in a simple word format. And for my sanity, please don't put it all down into boxes. How I would structure the CV, I would put the contact details clear at the top and keep it professional. Have a profile, so keep it again clear, professional. Introduce yourself and what your career goals are. Use your skills, so list your technical and soft skills that are relevant to the job. In regards to the work experience, make it so that it is in the correct order. So your most recent work will be at the top of the CV, working its way down. Showcase your achievements, any specific examples you've been doing in the field that you're applying for. Education and qualifications. So just list what education you've got, any achievements in there, diplomas and degrees. Also, I would put in there an optional section. So this would include things like your voluntary work, any awards or publications that demonstrate a well-roundedness within the industry. If you're over here on a working holiday visa, I would perhaps recommend putting down your visa details in regards to the expiry date of your visa and what type of visa you're on, as well as any restrictions within that visa. So if you can only work at a certain client or a certain place for 3 months, 6 months, or if there's no restrictions on that visa at all. Keywords are key. Sounds like a really weird thing to say, but a lot of people who are putting adverts up use a system called an applicant tracking system. So they look for keywords within CVs and applications, and they match it to the job. So what you want to do is highlight those keywords throughout your CV. And yeah, that's really it on the CV front. Now, how do you go about the job search? So target the right job. So there are certain adverts on or sites and systems that you can use to help you find jobs. So careers.gov.nz is a good one to start with, as well as Seek. These are probably the 2 bigger ones that we can use in New Zealand. Seek being the largest one. Network, as Sophia mentioned in the previous talk through, connect with professionals on LinkedIn, attend industrial events, and don't underestimate the power of informational interviews. So what an informational interview is a meeting in which you are looking for career advice rather than going in there and asking for a job. Craft a compelling cover letter. So not as sort of relevant to a temporary job where you've seen a job on Seek and it's advertised for 2 weeks work. Maybe we don't need a cover letter for that. If you've seen a fixed term contract for 6 months, 9 months, then definitely do that cover letter. Personalize it to your application. Briefly explain why you'd be a good fit for the role and highlight key achievements within your CV. One of the most important things once you're searching for the role you put your application is prepare for the interview. So research the company that you're interviewing with. Have a look, see if there's anything online about any potential interview questions. Practice your answers. If you have to ask yourself a question, then answer it in the mirror. Then so be it, or sit down over a coffee with a friend and just ask them if they can interview you. Focusing on your skills and experiences with the STAR method, which is situation, task, what the action was, and then the result. Be Kiwi friendly. New Zealanders probably value authenticity and a can-do attitude over the hard skills of your experience. Be confident, articulate your answers, and demonstrate your passion for the role. As Sophia said, being in New Zealand on a working holiday visa can be fun and a challenging experience, especially when it comes to finding employment. However, partnering with a reputable recruitment company such as Frog Recruitment, I put my teeth in, significantly ease the transition and enhance your job searching. We've got a network of clients who can help you find your next job, basically. If you are looking for work in the supply chain and logistics field, please feel free to get in contact with my details on the screen.
Thank you so much for that, Scott. Yeah, I remember when coming, obviously we're both in the UK, coming over in the UK, interviews are very structured, very corporate, very professional. So it was a little bit different coming in for a Kiwi interview and having it be a little bit more relaxed, a chat, trying to get to know you. So yeah, there are a few cultural changes across the board.
Yeah, definitely. Coming from a company that's based in London to the more relaxed style over in New Zealand is just night and day.
Yeah, 100%. Well, thank you so much. If anyone has any questions around job search strategies, CV writing tips and tricks, then please do leave a comment and we'll come back to them in the Q&A session. So last but not least, we are joined by Manish Ravikumar to discuss our interview preparation and cultural adaptation.
Kia ora, thank you, Kirsty, for the introduction. Today we are going to talk and sort of understand a little bit more about how to prepare for interviews. Obviously, interviewing works differently in different countries. So if you're moving to New Zealand, you might want to understand what really works in New Zealand and what New Zealand hiring managers are looking for when they interview you. I look after the permanent and contract services within property, so there'll be a little bit of specialized information on here, but I have tried to make it as general as possible to cover any area that you wish to work in. Cool. So we are going to start with interview preparation. So now you've done the hard work, your CV has been reviewed and your skills are a good match and you've got the interview. Before you go in for the interview, there might be a couple of things that you might want to prepare. So you put your best foot forward. Obviously, you are going to prepare for the interview, and the more prepared you are, the better the outcome is going to be. First, you're going to start by researching the company. So you're going to see what their mission and their vision is, what their values are, products, services. Also, a very good tip is seeing who the hiring manager is and all the executive leaders within the company, where they've worked previously. So if you can find some common interests with the people who are interviewing you, you're able to establish a little bit of a rapport immediately before you go into the interview. The second one is you're going to practice some common interview questions. So every interview starts with a little bit of a small talk. This is where you establish that rapport and you can bring forward your personability. So some of the common interview questions would be, why are you interested in this role or company? And this one might be a bit further down the interview, but in one way or the other, the interviewer will ask you what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. When answering questions like this, most people get a bit vague, and they say, for instance, I can work very well in a team, or I'm a really hard worker. These are all great traits, and of course they expect these traits from you. But if you are able to tailor that towards that particular interview or that particular position, say in my specialization, if someone is going to go in for a property management position, instead of saying, oh, they're a great team player or they're great with people, if they're able to say something along the lines of, I know the Auckland region very well, so traveling from one side to the other is going to be very comfortable for me. That is going to provide the interviewer with a lot of confidence in that candidate. So make sure you tailor your preparation towards the interview. Always helps. Third one, you're going to prepare some questions to ask. At the end of the interview in New Zealand, the interviewer will always give you the opportunity to ask a few questions. If you're able to demonstrate your curiosity and engagement and interest in the role and company through the questions you ask, that is going to bring you in a very good light. So ask about the company culture. Who am I going to be working with? What do the top performers do differently that makes them successful? How can I grow within the company? Can you help me grow within the company? All these are going to be very, very, very good questions to ask in an interview. And the next one is mock interviews. So like Scott mentioned before, if you're able to sit down with a friend or a family member and prepare for the interview, like give them a few questions to ask you in any particular order, and try answering these questions. It's better practicing with another person as opposed to you sort of practicing in front of a mirror, because it just has the human sort of connection, and it puts you at ease when you go in because you've practiced already, and they could obviously give you some pointers on what they felt like as well, which is always good. The last one is pretty common, and it's universal for wherever you interview, regardless of country. Dress appropriately. If you're going in for a professional position, make sure you're wearing a nice shirt and you're presenting yourself the way the successful people within the company are already presenting themselves, so they'll be able to see you as an employee straight away as opposed to just a candidate. We're going to talk a little bit about the cultural and workplace etiquette moving forward. I moved from India, and in India, the job market and even the interview process is quite different. Like a few before me mentioned, it's a very hard technical interview. The focus is mostly towards the technical ability. In New Zealand, I feel like the technical skills are very important to have, but the way you showcase your technical skills, with the way if you're personable, and if you demonstrate your culture fit to the hiring manager, that's also just as important, because the person who is interviewing you needs to understand that you can come into the team and it won't be disruptive. So a few tips for that is, first, adopt an informal communication style. This would probably be more relevant at the start of an interview. It's just a casual conversation, you're networking, and also once you go into a role. This is going to be very helpful. Workplace communication in New Zealand is very, very informal. It's quite relaxed compared to many other markets. We address our co-workers and our superiors using their first name, which might not be the case in many other markets. So don't be afraid to engage in casual conversation and small talk. Work-life balance is a very big thing in New Zealand. Always has been, at least over the last decade. New Zealanders value and respect work-life balance, and they prioritize their leisure time just so they can recharge and be at their best when they are in their their working hours. Also, New Zealand's a very beautiful country to explore, so definitely New Zealanders often want to explore the country on their leisure time, and they have boundaries where working hours are working hours, and the employer usually respects those boundaries and understand that they have a life outside the office. The third one is direct communication. New Zealanders usually appreciate direct communication, value honesty and transparency. If you're having a problem in the workplace, or if you're having a certain situation that's come up, usually honesty is the best way to go. And if you're able to be upfront and genuine and have that conversation, more often than not, it's a pretty smooth conversation to have and yields to the best outcome. The next one is diversity and inclusion. New Zealand's a very multicultural society, especially I live in Auckland. There's people from everywhere in the world, especially in the central business district. There's people from everywhere in the world. Every company has a very diverse workforce. So be open-minded and learn to sort of understand other people's cultures, ask questions, and respect the work environment, and being inclusive and collaborative just makes you a better team member. And it's also nice to understand different cultures and different people. Punctuality, the last one, I understand in many markets, or in most markets, it's a very important thing. It's very highly regarded in the New Zealand workplace as well. Anything for interviews, meetings, appointments that you have, make sure you arrive at least 5 or 10 minutes beforehand. It's very appreciated. You're not in a rush, so you're able to be calm and deal with the situation better, as opposed to just walking in the door 1 minute or 2 minutes or exactly on the time of the meeting. Cool. Once we have passed that, we are going to talk a little bit more about a few things to keep in mind while preparing for an interview. We touched upon a few of these earlier in the webinar. I'm just going to run through some of the more technical aspects of it. So there's a method called STAR method, which all of our candidates are trained on by the consultants, just so they can put forth and help the hiring manager visualize how well they're going to fit into the role, or how they're going to deal with the situation. So with STAR, S stands for situation, T for task, A for action, and R for results. So say, for instance, an employer asks you in a customer service position, can you explain a situation you had with when you had to face a difficult customer? Instead of giving them a generic answer or an unstructured answer, if you train yourself to adopt the STAR method. So this is the situation. They were quite unhappy. We were processing a return. This was what that had to be done. That's the task. Tell them what action you took to resolve the situation and what results came out of it. Now, in a perfect life, you take the right action and you receive a good result. But life doesn't obviously work like that. Employers are very well aware of that. So it doesn't always have to be a positive result. What they want to understand is that you are proactive and you can think quickly on your feet and you can take decisions. Next one is a why me pitch. So this is basically your pitch opportunity. Think of it as a sales situation, and you are in an interview, and your ability is the service that you're trying to pitch to a client. So why me can be like a quick little 3 or 4 highlights of what you've done in your career that relates directly to the position. If you're able to think of examples from your previous roles that relate directly to this position, it is going to be a very, very strong pitch. So yeah, focus on your unique strengths, experiences, and achievements that you've done. That might set you apart from the other applicants. ask unexpected questions, obviously within reason. You can make yourself stand out by asking quite thoughtful and unexpected questions that most people who interview won't ask. So interviewing can be quite a stressful affair. So people, when they finish the interview, they'll ask a quick couple of questions, very general ones. Do I have parking, or questions like that, or how's the growth within the role, or what are the office hours? And those are all good questions, but something that is going to set you apart when they go away and think of you and two other candidates. This question is going to kind of make them remember you. Inquire about the company's long-term vision, or like if there's a team of 5 working there and you are interviewing to be the next team member, ask them what is the biggest challenge the team faces, so they can see that you're forward thinking, you're thinking already into the future as to how you can solve those challenges. You might not have all the answers, but it's always best to ask a question like that. Send a thank you note after they've interviewed you. In New Zealand, first interviews are usually around 30 to 40 minutes. So someone's taking their time out to interview you. Regardless of the outcome, right after you finish the interview, later in the day, if you're able to pass on an email to them, say, thank you very much for taking your time. I really appreciated you taking time out of your schedule to see me. That can leave quite a lasting impression. It's a very nice gesture. Our company, Frog Recruitment, we also have our own interview guide that covers job seekers' sort of interview journey, from preparing for an interview, what you're supposed to do during an interview, and how to conduct yourself once the interview is done. To learn more about this, visit our website, frogrecruitment.co.nz. That is all about interview preparation. Get in touch with me if you are in New Zealand already looking for opportunities. I look after the permanent side of the business with property and sometimes sales positions as well. My details are on the screen. If you have any questions, get in touch with me.
Thanks, Manish. Got a bit of a haircut since that photo.
Yes, I have.
Just a touch. But no, thank you so much. I really enjoyed the questions at the end, because I know sometimes when we're in that interview, we're very keen to kind of sell ourselves and make sure they want us to have the job, but sometimes we forget about what we want out of a position as well. So I think some of those tips that you've gave just kind of really helps people build what that position is going to be that they're going to get themselves into. Yeah, of course. I always say, when you go in for an interview for a particular position, you may have done multiple things within your career, but if you try to take the relevant skills out of all of your previous roles and create a persona for that 40 minutes, just so it's completely relevant, all the information you provide to them is relevant to that role, just gives you a better chance, I feel. Yeah, definitely. So thank you so much. So throughout this webinar, we have seen that a few of you have been sending us some questions in. So we're going to take some time to cover some of those questions, and myself and the other consultants are going to join me on screen to answer some of those. Brilliant. So we are going to get Jacob to help us in the background, put some of those questions up on the screen. So first of all, what type of impact has the new New Zealand government had on working holiday people's job search? Who would like to take this one?
I can go. So with National coming in, before they were elected, they said that they wanted to make some changes to the working holiday visa, and they wanted to, increase the age from 30 to 35 and increase some of the applications coming through being approved. The sort of impact that would have on people's job search is obviously it would make the market a little bit tighter for you to find a role if there are more people on that sort of visa in the temporary workspace. But obviously it's great to give everyone a chance. But that's sort of what I've seen around.
Perfect. Yeah, I would 100% agree. I think also it's definitely made it easier for people who are wanting to come across and take on a new position in New Zealand. Obviously, as we saw, it does mean that there's a few more people coming in, so it's just made a few more applications in the market as well. So from Matthew, we've got, does Frog Recruitment sponsor people coming over, or do you need to have working rights before coming over? Scott, do you want to take this one?
Yeah, of course. So, we don't sponsor people coming over, I'm afraid. So you do need to have the working rights to work in New Zealand. We do have some clients that will help with the sponsorship, but as a company ourselves, we unfortunately won't be able to assist with getting you that sponsorship.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think if you can apply for a working holiday visa, that's obviously the easiest way in, and then that gives you a temporary visa. If you are needing to go down the accredited pathway, then it's worth having a look online. There is a couple of websites that actually list all of the accredited companies, and they're the ones where it's going to be a little bit of an easier process. From Chateau, we have Sophie. Would you say trying to find work before arriving is better, or arriving and then beginning your job search?
So what I would recommend is to survey the job market and have a look at what sorts of roles are around. Maybe try and get in touch with some recruitment agencies that work on the temporary front and see if you can get anything lined up. But your best chances are going to be when you're actually here, you have a New Zealand address on your CV and you have a New Zealand phone number. That's just going to tell the person who's employing or going through the CVs, oh, this person's going to be way easier to contact and they'll be able to start when I need them. So a lot of temporary positions, they need someone to start, as soon as possible, or just in a very short time frame. So they want to know that you are living in New Zealand, and that you have a secure place of residence, and that you've got the visa to be able to work here. So I think your chances of getting a job here are a lot higher when you actually move over here. So if you can't find anything before moving over here, don't let that discourage you from just coming over here and seeing how things work out, essentially.
Brilliant. And from Shane, thank you, Scott. In my CV, I had a year and a half off from work due to personal reasons. Should I include this gap, or should I leave it out?
I personally would include it in the CV myself, because any CV that you send out, naturally the first thing they're going to look at is any gaps. When they see the gap, they're just going to ask you the question. So I would leave it in there, just put for personal reasons, and then be prepared for them to actually ask questions around it. So yeah, that's pretty much that's what I would do. I don't know if anyone else has got any different opinions on that, but that's personally what I would do.
No, I think I completely agree on that one. I think it's fair to be transparent. When people are asking you around the reason for that gap, then you can go into a bit of detail, but don't feel like you have to disclose every little bit of information of what happened, but just giving a bit of an overview. Then I think it's definitely worth putting in there, because then people understand why there is a little bit of a gap in your CV. And New Zealand's very, very good with that kind of thing anyway, so I don't think you've got anything to worry about around taking time out. So we have Christina. So one question regarding the CV. So you mentioned we need to refer to our achievements. Could you please detail the type of language you could use? Do you mean things like increased sales with X% for the time period, Y, meaning very specific, or general ones, more phrased as job responsibilities, e.g. responsible for increasing sales and implementing new sales strategies?
So ideally you want to quantify it with achievements, with figures, percentages and statistics around that. If you don't know them, then yeah, like you've put responsible for increasing sales, implementing new sales strategies. What you want to avoid is using the term sort of I and we, because that it just looks wrong. It's the wrong terminology to be using. That's personally what I would suggest.
Brilliant. Anyone else got anything to add on that side?
I would include, if you put in a role down, say for instance, as the sales role that you've asked about, provide an overview of what the role was about. So in that section at the start, you can say was involved in strategic business development and scoping out the market. But when you go into explaining what your day-to-day or your responsibilities was about the role, or under key highlights, you can definitely put down, I've raised the profits from 40 to 60% in X amount of time by doing so and so. I think that would make it stronger. So I think you should go with both.
Perfect. And Christina, so how do you write a CV to show you have transferable skills? How should achievement bullet points be rephrased?
I think achievement bullet points are fine personally. If I see a CV and it's got their job and then what they achieved in those jobs and they are bullet pointed, I think the bullet point's perfectly fine. You can obviously make it into a short little paragraph under the role. With transferable skills, it's a tough one really, because you're always naturally going to have transferable skills with whatever role you do. If there's interaction with other colleagues and candidates, customers, there's always going to be that communication skills in there. Again, you could have a section just with transferable skills and then a brief explanation of what you believe will be a transferable skill and why it's going to assist you in this role. But again, I perhaps am a sucker for something simple with just some bullet points.
Yeah, I think it comes back as well to that tailoring your application to the particular role at this stage. So it makes it a bit easier to showcase what transferable skills you've got for that particular role. So it just helps you identify what that should be rather than having a huge list of transferable skills to try and cover all positions. And we have another question from Brian. So I am in New Zealand, Auckland, and have sent out 378 CVs and cover letters without any success. They either say I don't have New Zealand experience or they say I'm overqualified for the position. What do I do?
So I would recommend, sorry, Manish. Like I said, in the end of my section, maybe perhaps, you're applying for some roles that are quite specialized. The reality is, unfortunately, that you will have to get a foot in the door somehow and start out, at an administrator level or a coordinator level, a level lower than what you're used to working at, just because they do value New Zealand experience over years of experience, unfortunately. And because our candidate market is so saturated at the moment, there's a lot of people feeling this way and experiencing this where, they're applying for a lot of things and the hiring manager is quicker to pick someone with New Zealand experience just because they'll be able to hit the ground running. So I would definitely recommend going in at a lower level or applying for some other roles, outside of your usual profession, in areas where people may lack staff, such as hospitality and blue collar roles or retail or anything else really, just to, have some sort of work experience in New Zealand.
Manish, you were going to jump in. Did you have anything extra to add?
Yeah, quite similar. I was going to say the harsh reality being you might have to start at a level that's lower to yours. Also, if you're applying for 2 or 3 or 5 different types of roles with the amount of CVs you've sent out, you may have been applying for a large variety of roles. So obviously tailoring your CV, if you're a sales candidate and if you're sending out a CV to account management positions, make your CV all about account management so they understand you're a specialist. And if you're sending it out to business development roles, make it all about how you've gone out and acquired new business, because most sales roles will be a mix of both, and you would have done one or two or both in every role. That's just one of the examples. Also, get in touch with a recruitment consultant who might be able to get you into the market with a temp or a contract role, which might be a little bit under your level, or even could be on the same level, but it will be 3 to 6 month role that's going to get you into the market, where you can network with different people, you can make more of the role that you go into, and there's many options from there. So that will be a good start for you, Brian.
Yep, 100% agree. And I think the only additional thing that I'd say is at the moment, there is an increase in applications. So for some roles, we're receiving kind of 200 to 300 applicants per position. So it's kind of, how do you make yourself stand out from those people? So it can even be, if there's a number on the bottom of the advert, just give them a call and have a conversation with them, because then they'll know you as a person rather than a piece of paper. The other thing is, you can get really creative if you want to and create a video CV. So add in a video kind of introducing yourself, a little bit around your experience. And then again, you're not just a piece of paper. It's different. We don't see it that often. So it just makes you stand out a little bit from the crowd. Thank you so much for joining us. If you do want to get in contact with any of the consultants from today's webinar, I'm not sure whether I was being heard then in the background or not, sorry. So thank you so much for joining us on today's webinar. If you do want to get in contact with any of the consultants, I think Jacob's going to put our details on the screen, but we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to be able to help. And if you've got any extra questions, just give us a call.